second video from November 23rd on ArcGIS Online. However long that took, it should be finished. And, one of the ways you can really sort of see before we even go online is if you go to Portal and then you sort of scroll down, because you won't have all these folders yet, and you can sort of see, there it is, right? The sort of map and the layer itself that we loaded online. And so now we actually need to go to ArcGIS Online to start to manipulate and sort of play with our data here. So you could go to arcgis.com and sign in. You're going to sign in with the same name that you use to authorize Pro up here. And it'll sort of bring you to your web page, and then you want to navigate until you're at your content. So we're not going to do like a huge walkthrough of sort of each of the mechanical parts of ArcGIS Online. But I do want to sort of show you kind of what some of the main sort of features and data types that you see. The two most common and important you're going to see here are the web map and sort of a feature layer. So the web map is, as it seems, the actual map, and the feature layer is effectively the data, right, that you brought. So I brought in New York City zip codes pandemic. Students, who were in the in-class session, we played around and brought in some stormwater, data here. And the cool thing with feature layers is they are effectively a grouping of any data pieces that you brought in, even if you brought them in together, meaning that because I only loaded one layer here, New York City pandemic, that's all that shows up here, right? But here, when I was sort of bringing this data in, there were two different sort of data types, and that's why they show up. So before we do, whoopsie, not what I want. So before we do anything, let's click here on the three little dots that are next to the feature layer, and I want you to go to View Item Details. And this is going to show us a little bit about the data that we brought in, right, the feature. So the first page gives you some sort of basics about it. You can do a lot of stuff with it. We can open it in its own map. That's kind of neat. Not something we'll do today, but because we'll just open the map directly that we loaded. But a cool thing is that whenever you load feature data to ArcGIS Online, it lives on your ArcGIS Online portal, and you can continually load it into any other map that you create online. The data visualization, this is where you can sort of remind yourself what information is in the table. This is where you can sort of get a quick preview of kind of what it would look like. And then settings probably is what's going to be most important, is where you can sort of manipulate how people engage with it. And there's all kinds of fun things where you can delete it. You can click sort of approve this layer, and then that opens up your ability to enable editing if you want. You can come down here and allow others to export it into different formats, right? So there's a lot of cool things you can sort of do. It just manipulates how you and others who are using this resource can engage with your data. So maybe I should, there we go, updated. So that's that. Let's go back to our content. Very cool. I'm public data collection, people can use it. It's sort of open and such. I can sort of turn the editing off if I didn't want that. But what I really want to focus on here is this web map. So if you come to the three dots or even just click on here, it'll open up the actual map itself. So the map itself is the base map and everything around it, as well as the data. So come on down here, and you have this option to open in Map Viewer. No disrespect to ESRI, but I think the new map viewer, the blue one, is not great. Kind of annoying interface to look at. So I'm not going to focus on it. I'm going to do the map viewer classic, right, until they sort of strip away the ability to do that any longer. But come on in here and go to that. And there we go, right? Does not look too dissimilar to what we've had in the past. Let's do a quick little overview of sort of what we see here and what's available to us. And then we'll do one last video where we take this, the map, and turn it into something more interactive, what we would call an app. So first things first, let's come on up here and maybe give it like a better name, New York City, zip code, COVID data. Give that a save. Come on over here, regularly use this if we want to sort of save our map. Sharing, this is where I've made it public now, but I can put it in a website. I can sort of take the link and share it with people. Good stuff. Come on over here. Couple things to know. Add. This is where you can load new data. So this is actually pretty cool. Like I can search for layers, and it'll search my ArcGIS Online for any layer that my team or someone on my team or adjacent to my team has loaded to ArcGIS Online would be available here, and you can sort of load it onto any map. So again, that relates to that point that when you bring data into ArcGIS Online, it lives here until you delete it. There's some other cool stuff you can start to do with here, like living atlas layers are kind of neat, where you could like bring in these things that ESRI provides for you. Like I'll bring in one for traffic, which is kind of neat to underpin your data. I'll have sort of the world traffic data come in. I'll add it. Just be mindful that when these things live on your maps, they eat up credits, which is sort of the currency of ArcGIS Online, that lets you do tools and host data. While you guys are at school, the school's going to sort of pay for it, obviously, so it's not something you need to worry about too much. But when you get back out into the world, just be, of course, mindful that, the company for which you work, may want to sort of mandate the number of credits you can use. So I'll come back in here and delete that because I don't need it. I just wanted to show you what a living atlas was. You can change your base maps, and you can even run some of the same analytics that we've been running in Pro here, but again, that uses credits, so it's not something we're really going to mess with. All right, so if I come over here, though, this is where I can actually start seeing my data, right, and seeing sort of the legend. And I want to talk through sort of like what options we have to manipulate it here. Nothing novel from what we've already learned in Pro, just sort of a different muscle memory of the way things look. So I can come here and open the attribute table if I want. I can come to each sort of field and sort it, calculate statistics, so if I do statistics here, in sort of the data time frame I've had here, the total number of deaths in these zip codes, right, was 34,022, right? So all that stuff that I would be able to do to calculate, to run statistics, to add fields, to turn them on and off, can all be sort of accomplished over here, right? Add a field, filter, so on and so forth. Good stuff. This is my symbology, right? So if I wanted to come here and let's say I want to show percent positive, I can show it by a color. I could show maybe total death rate, and I'll show total death rate by a size. So it'll give sort of like a size here of the total death rate, or color. Again, and I can then come in here and change this, change the breaks if I wanted to, classify it in such a way that I'm using quantiles or natural breaks, whatever. You choose what you want to do. 5 classes, quantiles. Right? This is sort of the death rate. That's cool, right? So again, symbology, right? No different than sort of what we're accustomed to. Oops, forgot to save it there. So that was the death rate. Choosing the colors, come on in here and classifying it. You need to use quantiles and break it into 5 classes. Okay, done, right. So there it is. Sort of shows me where the death rate is sort of highest in various places throughout New York. Filter is interesting, right? This is where we can sort of turn stuff on and off, right? So if maybe I want to look at areas where the percent positive, right, the test rate percent positive, is greater than or equal to 5%, apply the filter and let's see, let me make sure I've got that data right. The positive rate. Okay, so it already normalizes it. So why don't I do, it's greater than 7, but I'm actually going to come on in here and say like percent positive is greater than 7. And right, it's only going to then show areas in census tracts zip codes that have a percent positive rate of greater than 7. So again, that's just like definition query select by attribute. We're used to using tools like that. Come onto these dots, you can zoom in, you can make things transparent so you can see through them. You can hide it in the legend or show it. But the last really important thing is this idea of a pop-up. And, I want to show you that, like, when you click on something, this is what pops up. And that's nice, but maybe you actually want to sort of modify and manipulate your data in such a way that it's a little bit neater and sort of a little bit cleaner for someone to look at. And you can do that by configuring a pop-up. And this is where you can sort of come in here and maybe say something like, put the word zip code here, right? And then add that field zip code. You could put no attribute information. You could customize one. You could have a single field. And the cool thing is that when you list your fields, you can then come in and configure the attributes, which is, sort of neat, right? So we could come in, to my thing here and maybe say, I don't need this, I don't need the zip code, but I want to show total cases. And then if I click on it, I can make it have 1,000 separator. In my case race, there could be, how about 0 decimal places, but we'll have 1,000, right? So I'm just making this thing look neater and cleaner than it normally would. In my percent positive, maybe we'll have sort of, there be 1 decimal place, and total tests will have 1,000. I don't really need the shape area. Don't need the shape length. So again, I'm turning off fields I don't need. I'm changing the name of certain fields here. I could even just show you how I change that total COVID cases. And hit OK. And all you've done here is just make it so it's a cleaner thing to look at, right? The data is neater. It's easier for someone to visualize. So again, you're just sort of building something for others to visualize and to look at that is neater and cleaner, and now I could share this link. Anybody could access this, and I have sort of an interactive-based web app. So that said, though, right, to really engage with the data here, someone's going to need to have like an account and be able to sort of look and access all this stuff. Sometimes you want to sort of preload a map in a way that you're filtering it through like a visualization scheme, or you're putting widgets or little tools around it that make it like an interactive web-based application. So that's what we're going to do for our last video, is we're going to sort of come back and take this map and then we're going to build a web app around it, and that will conclude our ArcGIS Online tutorial.